Hi everyone. I've had a few comments recently about how I made this futuristic glass orb or lava lamp shader from a previous Google Colab and Blender tutorial. So today I'll be showing you how I made this material. So the first thing I'm going to do is just delete everything from the scene. I'm going to create a new plane for the orb to sit on and just scale that up a fair bit and Control A, scale. Now let's just go to the shading tab. Let's create a new shader. Now, assuming you've got the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you can click on the principled BSDF, go Control-Shift-T. I'm going to navigate to the directory where I've downloaded a texture file, this cobblestone texture from Polyhaven. Select the diffuse, displace, normal map and the roughness map together and go principled textured setup. And you can see it's connected up the physically based material setup. Now just go to your render properties and change from Eevee to cycles and press render. Then I'm just going to come over to my environment settings, click the little yellow dot next to color, go environment texture, and I'm going to open up a HDRI that I downloaded from Polyhaven. And now I'm just going to render that. And you can see I've got my HDRI in the background and I've got my PBR material on the ground plane. So let's start setting up the geometry for the energy orb. First thing I'm going to do is just going to create a cylinder. Just bring it up a little bit, scale it outwards. And this is just going to be the platform for the energy orb. Let's just go smooth shading. I'm going to go down to normals here and go auto smooth. And let's just go to the side view here. Let's just bring that down a little bit, just so it's sitting on the ground plane. And I'm just going to go into edit mode. I'm going to select the top face here and press I to insert faces. And just create a small border for it. Then just press E to extrude and hold Z. Just to bring it down a little bit. Then I'm going to insert faces a little bit. And just bring it in a little bit more. And then I just want to extrude downwards one more time. So E and Z. And I just want to create the center here where we're going to place like a glowing plane to illuminate the orb above it. Let's add material to this stand for the energy orb now. So I'm just going to click that, go new, click the principled BSDF again and go Control-Shift-T. I'm going to select these medieval blocks materials that I downloaded from Polyhaven again and go principled textured setup. And this time I want to make sure UV is connected. And let's just press rendered view. So you can see it hasn't done a great job of UV unwrapping, so let's just do that quickly. So I'm just going to tab into edit mode. I'm just going to go select all and go unwrap. And this still probably isn't going to look great, so we'll fix it up in a second. So you can see we're having problems with this edge here, so let's just unwrap that. So I've just shift double clicked the edge here. And just shift unclick these bits here as well. And let's just go into UV editing tab. Let's just go to the side view here. I'm just going to press X-ray mode. Make sure they're all selected around the edge. And I'm just going to try UV project from view bounds. So it's looking better, we just might want to unstretch those UVs a little bit. So I'm just going to select all in my UV editor here and let's just try scaling it in the Y. That's looking better. And I've just scaled it out in the X a little bit as well. So you can see we're getting more of the bricks there on the side now. And it's struggling a little bit on the inside as well. So let's just select all. So I'm just going to scale those up a little bit more. So we might need to fix up these UVs on the inside as well. Let's just go down to the side view again. X-ray mode, let's go UV project from view again. Go back to the UV editor. Looks like I'll have to repeat it again for this inside bit as well. So I'm just going to go UV Q projection, scale it out in the X a little bit, scale it up in the Y. And we'll just put a single brick layer there. And that's looking okay for our platform. So let's just close out of UV editor and let's start making the energy orb. So I'm just going to create a UV sphere. Let's just bring it up a little bit. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier. Add 2 subdivisions. Go apply. Scale it up a little bit. And let's bring the platform out a little bit. You can choose whatever dimensions you want for the sphere. I'm going to right click and go Shade Smooth. Control A and apply scales. Okay, let's start working on the material now. Go over to your shading tab here. Just bring this up a little bit. The basis for this material is a refraction, BSDF, and an emission shader. So let's add those in. And now we want to add in a mix shader. Delete the principal BSDF and connect the mix shader to the surface output, and connect the refraction to the top shader input and the emission shader to the bottom input. Then you want to create a Fresnel node, and you want to use the Fresnel node as the control for the fraction of the mix shader. Let's have a look what that looks like. So let's actually change the material to, let's say, blue. And you can see it's creating a blue emission from the outside of the material. So that's not exactly what we want. First thing I'm going to do is just lower the index refraction to 1.4. And now let's just move this up a little bit. Let's create a Musgrave texture. And I'm just going to press Ctrl T just to create the mapping and textual coordinates for this. And let's use the object coordinates. And let's create a color ramp as well. Let's change 3D to 4D, because we're going to want to be able to change this W parameter to animate the whole thing. Leave it on FBM and connect the height into the color ramp, and we're going to use the color to control the mix shader here. And you can see we're starting to get an interesting effect there. Let's actually bring this white down just a little bit, and let's bring the black slider up a little bit. And you can start to see something that resembles the energy orb material. Let's increase the scale, decrease the scale back to 3.2. Let's increase the dimension. Let's try about 8.9, and let's increase this to about 7.3. And that looks like a pretty good basis for the material. Okay, now the key to this material is to create a math node, and we're going to change this to divide. And we're going to divide the Fresnel output by the color output to the color ramp, and connect this into the fraction. Let's increase the index of refraction to about 2. Let's increase the emission up to about 200, and that's looking pretty familiar now. Just going to lower the orb down a little bit, just so it's closer to the pedestal. And with the sphere selected, go Add Modifier, go Solidify, and let's just decrease the thickness a little bit, just to create that edge effect that you would have seen previously. And it's entirely up to you what thickness you want to select, but 0.2 meters looks pretty good. Okay, now let's just go Mesh, Circle. Let's just bring that up a little bit. You just want it to be at the level of that bottom bit of the pedestal. Just increase the scale a little bit, and I'll just lower it a little bit. Scale it out, enter edit mode, and press F to fill. Now let's create a new material for that. Let's just delete the principled, and let's create an emission, and let's just give it a blue color, and increase that. Let's maybe make it about 55, looks pretty good. And if you want to, you can animate the colors of this as well. Okay, let's click on the energy orb again. Now we want to animate this Musgrave texture a little bit. So you can use this, you can do this by changing the W parameter here. Let's just bring up a timeline here. So let's say on frame 1, I want to start at 0. Let's go out to, let's bring this down to 200. And on frame 200, let's set the W parameter to be 1. Keyframe that. Oops, forgot to keyframe at frame 1. Oh, already was. So the W parameter is going to go from 0 to 1 between frame 0 and 200. Let's just go back to viewport shading. This material kind of works okay in Eevee, but it works a lot better in cycles. And you can see if you animate it now, you get that kind of lava lamp or energy orb material. And you can adjust the speed of this by increasing the W value. So at frame 200 you might want to use a value of 2 instead of a value of 1. So if you want to animate the color with time as well, you can just create a new value node and a color ramp node. I'm going to change linear to ease, change the black slider, I'm going to give that a blue color, change the white slider to a red color. Let's just drag these up a little bit. Now you can animate the value here with a driver, so let's just for example type in hashtag frame. Now if I press play on the timeline, you can see it's using the frame number to change this value here, which we're going to use as a driver for the color. So if I connect the value to here and render, oops, forgot to connect the color to the color, press play. So you can see it slowly changes from a blue color to a pinkish color and then finally to a red color. If you wanted to animate this in a loop, you could use a sine function here. For example, hash sine of frame and then close bracket divided by 200. But I'm pretty happy the way it is now. And the last step is just to make the orb hover a little bit in the air, like you would have seen in one of my earlier tutorials. Press N to bring out the transforms here. So we just want to animate the Z value here a little bit. So if I press hash, and let's do sine of frame, and let's try divided by 200. Oh, we want to give it some initial value as well, which will just be this starting value here, which is 6.4. So if I do this and do hash sine frame of, let's try it, 100 and do plus 6.4. So now it's going to hover above that point. And if I press play, it's going a little bit slowly, so let's just divide this by 50 instead and press play. And you can see the orb is now hovering. Let's quickly create a camera for this scene. And I'm going to scale the plane a bit so I can't see it in the background and render it. Looks like the texture on our ground plane is a little bit too big. Let's just go to the shading again. Let's increase this to 10. Just rotate it a little bit so it looks a little more randomized. That's looking a little bit better. You probably also want to synchronize the color of the orb to this luminescent plane here as well. So let's go back to the shading editor. So to synchronize those, you just want to copy these 3 nodes down here down the bottom. So I'm going to go Control C, click that little plane, paste it back in here, delete the original emission node, and connect the emission here to the surface of that material. Now we re-render that. Now you can see the color of the plane here is synchronized. So let's actually drop this to about 100. So you may actually need to reset the driver for this. So just go hash frame 200. And now you can see the blue synchronized with the blue of the orb. And if I play it, the 2 colors change at the same time. And I'm just going to add a bit of depth of field. Let's set the sphere as my target. Let's drop the f-stop a little bit. And with a little bit more tweaking, this is the final result that I got. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. See you next time.